Hi everybody, welcome back to Scooter's Nature Corner. This week we're going to be looking at the beauty that we can see around us, even in your backyard, as well as to use your ears to hear. I challenge you to go, after you watch this, to go out in your yard and around your neighborhood and look for some of these birds. Our first bird is the blue jay. He's a very curious and fearless fellow. He mainly eats nuts and seeds and berries, and he'll even rob other birds' nests and eat the eggs or maybe even the baby birds. The jay call warns other birds about predators, but they can also be aggressive toward the other birds as well. Listen to and see if you've heard this call before. And jays are really that loud too. Our next one is the black-capped chickadee. These birds love your bird feeders. If you have a bird feeder out, I'm sure you've seen one. But they won't sit to eat. They stop and they grab a bite and then they fly away to eat it somewhere else. They have a real interesting flight pattern too. They bounce. It looks like they're riding on a roller coaster, up and down, up and down, up and down across the yard. It's really fun to watch. And their call sort of sounds like they're saying their name, chickadee-dee-dee-dee. So let's listen. Pretty cool, huh? Our next one is the beautiful cardinal. Everybody's seen a cardinal. They're the brightest in the yard. The male, of course, is always the prettiest. He's solid red with a little black on his face. Notice that both of their beaks are red too. They don't migrate, so you'll see them all year long. They love feeders, especially if you put sunflower seeds. The male is usually the singer among these two birds, but the cardinal will sing if she's sitting on a nest, asking him to bring her something to eat. They have a very distinct call as well. Let's listen. So next time you hear that little whistle, look for the redbird. The other one is the mourning dove. This dove is an adult because you can see under the eye is a little black spot. The juveniles don't have the black spot, so you know whether it's a full-grown dove or not if the black spot is there. They love bird feeders, but they don't go to the feeder. They gather around underneath the feeder and get the seeds that are dropped on the ground. The morning call is made by puffing up their throat, and then they hoo without even opening their mouth. A lot of times, if you don't know better, some people say that's an owl, but it's really a mourning dove. See how it could be mistaken for an owl because of hoo, hoo. But it's really just a cooing noise. This little fellow, and he is little, is a tufted titmouse. They are just so active and they're always in your backyard. They love the bird feeder. Do you know that they hoard the food? They will take the seeds, crack them, and then they will hoard those food, the actual seed itself, for winter and fall. They make their nests in natural cavities like holes in a tree, and they line them with hair. And they live within 130 feet of their food source. So if they're in your backyard, their house, their living place, is not too far off. Here's what they sound like. Same old whoop, 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 whoop. Our next one is the sign of spring. When you see the American robin, red-breasted robin, out in the yard looking for worms, you know spring is here. They'll nest in boxes, and they will get it well done before the season starts. And they'll produce probably 3 full nests of birds. They're carnivorous. They do eat some berries, but they like their bugs and worms. Here's what they sound like. Interesting, huh? It's kind of hard to differentiate between all these, but if you listen enough, you'll get them. The next guy is my favorite. The first time I ever saw a painted bunting blew me away. He was so pretty and iridescent. The sun was shining on him, and it just lit up like fire. And I look for him every June, and sure enough, he shows up every June. They love seeds. They come to my bird feeder and raise their babies and in my backyard. And all the babies are kind of the green that is on the male's back. The female is all green, but the babies are green until they mature, and then the males turn this beautiful color. They work together, the male and the female, to build the nest. And these birds are also on the near threatened list. So if you see them, be sure to put out food for them. They do migrate all the way from Mexico up through Texas and as far north as Oklahoma. Here's their sound. Okay, then we have the beautiful mockingbird. It gets his name because he mocks everything. If you're not sure what the bird call is, it's probably a mockingbird, because they'll have from 10 to 15 different calls. Mockingbirds are also aggressive. If you get in their territory, they'll fly at you. I've seen them chase off cats. They'll fly down and swoop down and try to peck your head or the cat's head, and to keep you away from their nest. They will show up at the feeder, but they won't light at the feed. They'll eat around it. They sing almost all the time, even sometimes in the evenings. I don't know if you caught it or not, but when they're doing their patterns, they usually go in threes. And they'll repeat something 3 times, and then they'll change it and repeat it the next one 3 times. So anytime you hear that repetition, more than likely, it's a mockingbird. Our next bird is a song sparrow. I know you've seen sparrows. There's so many different kinds of sparrows out there. All the little brown birds all on the ground, they're the sparrows. But the song sparrow is the most common in your backyard. And they perch on low branches. And the funny thing is that they lean back and they sing this shuddering little clacking song. And they love your feeders as well. Here's what they sound like. If you see a red bird and it doesn't have a red beak, then it's the summer tanager. I also have a lot of these around my house. So many times you see a red bird and you just automatically think it's a cardinal, But the summer tanagers, they're not as popular. They're not as populated as the cardinal. But if you see a red one, take note and see if it's got the top notch and the red beak. If not, it's a tanager. I love these guys because their favorite thing to eat is bees and wasps. I'm so glad somebody wants to eat them. But you know what they do? They catch it in flight, and then they go immediately to a branch and they rub the wasp on the branch to knock off the stinger. And then they eat it. Isn't that smart? Here's what a tanager sounds like. Our next bird is a pretty little bird. It's called a bluebird, but it has this rusty breast and white belly. He's so cute. They nest in boxes. In fact, we put some bluebird nest boxes around the fences there at camp one year and got to watch them lay eggs and raise their young. The male will bring all the stuff to the nest, but he lets her rearrange it the way she wants. Isn't that just like a man? They'll move stuff, but the woman's got to arrange it the way she wants it. Anyway, watch for these little bluebirds. Kind of sounds like a chickadee, but more of a chick than where the chickadee has an emphasis on the dee 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 dee. Anyway, the next bird is the crow. Years ago when we had the tents at camp, these guys would wake us up at 5 o'clock in the morning, flying over, cawing as loud as they could. These guys are pretty big, and typically they like worms and insects. They won't come to your bird feeder. Their flights are very unique in that they methodically flap their wings, and never will they glide. They're always flapping their wings. They usually go in rather large flocks, and when they're really going together, sometimes the flocks will be hundreds or even a million of them at one time. That's where you see all these blackbirds flying around. Sometimes they're grackles, but sometimes they're crows. And everybody knows what the crow sounds like, don't we? Then there's the red-winged blackbird. This guy is not real popular, and you won't see him because he's mainly black, but he has a very distinctive call. So if you hear him in the woods, you'll know what it is. They will come to under the feeder, particularly during migration times, but not usually. And the male has a rather large territory, and within that territory, he will have up to 10 to 15 females nesting. And believe me, he guards that territory. Here's his distinctive call. It's kind of a shrill rill, isn't it? And here's a great woodpecker that we see. No, this is not a red-headed woodpecker, which is called a pileated woodpecker. This guy is a ladderback. He does have a red top notch, but he gets his name because his back is striped and looks like a ladder. He is very, very agile. He can climb up a vertical tree. He can sit on a branch, or he can even hang upside down. He's so agile. but he's going to get that bug in that wood no matter what he has to do. They have a stiff tail that he can lean back on to support himself. He's not easily seen because he's camouflaged, but you'll hear him pecking. And when you hear him pecking, then you can start looking for the sound and find him. Hopefully he won't go around to the back side of the tree and hide from you. But you can also find him by listening to his call. Our next one is one that you will never see, the whippoorwill. You'll hear him, but you won't see him. He is so camouflaged that it is almost impossible to see him. They lay their eggs, this is a funny fact, in regards to the phase of the moon, so that they lay the eggs so that they will hatch 10 days before the full moon, because they fly at night and they catch their bugs by seeing the bug in the silhouette of the moon. And when you're having to feed babies, you want to be able to find a lot of bugs. So that's why they time it to be hatching around the full moon. Here's what they kind of say their name too, like the chickadee. Let's listen. Whippoorwill, yeah. And this is my all-time favorite. I have a family of barred owls on my property, and I see them frequently, and they have raised young. In fact, I have a picture of one of their young taking a bath in my pool. The daddies can get really big, 2.5 feet tall. And they are very unique in that they have those circles around their eyes. Their eyes are dark, so they don't stand out, but those circles do, to where they look like they have these huge eyes. They are nocturnal, but they tend to sit quietly and just sit in the trees and swivel their heads around looking for prey. They eat rodents, small birds, and snakes. And they'll call to each other across the woods at night, and it's just an awesome sound. Here's what they sound like. I don't know if you were able to hear the one far, far away that was answering him, but that's what they'll do. They'll answer across the field to each other. And our last bird is the red-tailed hawk. This guy is very prevalent here in Texas. You know you aren't going to see him in your backyard, but as you drive around the highways, watch for him sitting on the top of telephone poles. He'll be sitting up there watching for rodents to run around. And then he will go to flight and glide down and catch his prey and then fly off and to go eat it. They do soar like eagles, but they are magnificent to watch. And if you ever see or hear a raptor or a hawk or an eagle on the movies, 9 out of 10 times, it's a red-tailed hawk cry that you're hearing. Well, I hope you've enjoyed seeing all these birds, and I challenge you to go outside and see how many of them you can find by either looking at them or listening for them. Happy bird watching.